Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Awakenings with Michele Meiche, the weekly dose of spiritual and metaphysical insights and information for navigating the soul path. During the show, if you would like to call in for a reading or with comments or questions, call 347-539-5122 and press 1 on the keypad, or join the Sacred Space of Empowerment live chat. Create a username by registering with Blog Talk Radio. It's great to connect with all of you here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. I'm Michele Meiche. Welcome, everyone in the chat room, and welcome everyone listening later via the archives or iTunes. So many archives and iTunes listeners. Just amazing. People listening across the divide, across the water, across the pond, listening internationally. And we have some Canadian listeners as well, I know, that are tuning in today, and I want to say a special hello to them as well. Hi, Trish in the chat and all the guests in the sacred space of empowerment known as chat room. We have a great program today. I'm really excited. Larry Dossey, one of the few guests that Yoshi stays in and listens to. Don't know why. Those of you that don't know, Yoshi's my little dog, my little Pekingese, little animal being, little Buddha baby. Those of you that have heard him on the program before, you know just how special he is. Just remarkable person, and done a lot of great work over the years. Got a lot of notice, and we're going to be talking about his latest book, One Mind, and diving into that, which fits right into our show as we deal a lot with consciousness. So I also want to let everyone know that this Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, I hope I put it right in the chat. Did I put 3 or I'm not sure. I might have put 12, but it's 3 p.m. Pacific time. The teleworkshop, Soul Path workshop, this Sunday, November 17th, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And you can find out more information by going to connectingtoinnergps.eventbrite.com. That's connectingtoinnergps.eventbrite.com. And as many of you know, I'm really focused on empowerment and people. Even you hear when I do the readings, I love tuning in, and there's a lot that I can see psychically through my natural gifts and channeling and through the training that I've had. However, I'm really into people having their own experience of their inner guidance, of their psychic ability, of non-local mind, tapping into universal mind, getting those flashes of insight, and connecting into the resonant field of the subtle energy. And whether you want to call it the life force animating energy, God, the all that is, Great White Spirit. I mean, there are tons and tons of names and phrases, the unknowable mystery. And we do that a lot in my workshops. You will actually feel the energy. You will actually have your own insight, your own experience. Because I learned years ago, and in fact, years ago when I was doing a lot of in-person workshops, media company that I worked with on one particular workshop, I think actually it's probably more people are doing this now. But years ago, a lot of the workshops, there were just more people, more talking, like lectures and that kind of thing. And this was a speaking engagement. And I just had everybody in the audience. I did some interplane work with them. And then we did some pair work. And so people were kind of shocked. They're like, we didn't know we had to do something. And I'm like, you don't want me just to stand up here and just yammer on and on, right? You don't want me to just stand up here, blah, 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 I'm talking, and you're passively listening. I think some of that is good, but it's better to also have the experience of what I'm sharing with you, the experience, a little bit of my experience, how I experience the world as a mystic. And part of that's my teacher training. I'm very grounded. To really learn something and then know something, we have to then experience it. And so I won't speak as an expert on something that I haven't yet experienced, even if I've studied it. I may say, well, I studied that or I read this. But I like to move into the knowingness of something, and that's where I feel we're all going. Anyway, that's the soul is here to know itself through self-expression and creativity. You know, we're here to know ourselves and know each other through ourselves. And we're here for relationship. We're here to relate. We're here to love. And part of our love is our creative expression, our creative outlets, and our creative forms. So I'm excited to have Dr. Larry Dossey on because he taps into this. Because when we're creating, we move out of locality. We start in local mind, right? We start in our beta awareness. We started maybe our thinking or our analyzing, or friend Lizette says when she goes to the canvas, what am I going to do? You know, she's a world-renowned painter. What am I going to do? But the flash comes. The flash comes. You know, it all comes at the last minute. It comes when we get out of the way. The ego gets out of the way, and something comes from a more expanded aspect of our being, expanded consciousness, whatever you want to term it, higher self. I mean, there's a lot of little terms, and then there's some vast terms. By the way, I went to my flamenco concert. It was amazing, just absolutely amazing, just transported. They opened up with some beautiful Latin fusion jazz and just kind of transported us, and then came into the storytelling of the flamenco. And actually I talked to the artist director, and he was saying, yeah, at night it came through. I don't know if he said when he woke up or when he woke up from sleeping or something, that the lineup came through. And I remember that from a lot of my performing days. I also used to choreograph shows, mostly modeling, fashion shows and stuff. And the music, you know, you could have everything planned, but then there's this kind of golden hour, this golden time right before where something just comes through. It's like through all of our kind of human effort, we set the stage. We have to show up. We have to do our due diligence. There are steps that we do. You know, I meditate, I tune in, when I do TV work, I say, okay, let me get out of the way. You know, I read my script, I do what I need to do. If I'm doing, you know, hosting, or maybe going on a show to talk about spirituality or do intuitive work, there's what I do. There's meditations that I do, movement that I do. Then at some point you have to give it up. You have to just open to. And that is actually being in that meditative state when you do that. You're in the meditative state. So it's like saying the meditation is the preparation. You know, it's the scales, you know, the piano scales. It's the singer that sings the notes, the scales. It's the practice. But it's just practice. You know, the result, if there's anything, is to be in that flow, that free flow, to be in that meditative state or unified state of consciousness where the magic comes through, you know, whatever level. You know, it's a form of genius. Does it mean we're genius? Maybe not, but maybe we all are a little. And that's where we're going more and more, is living more in that state. That's why opening up more creatively, no matter where you come from, it's possible to do that. Granted, it's easier in certain areas and around certain cultures, but it's not impossible. And I hold the dream, I hold the vision that one day more people, and if not everyone, will be able to know this, understand this, and live this way, that we will have a world that embraces that more, you know, and nurtures that more, and a society that to anchor that, you know, to create the structures for that. Thanks, Tricia, in the chat saying, great analogy about prepping, like practicing scales. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. People get caught up in the scales, you know, like my meditation practice, my yoga practice. I do an hour and a half. I do 2 hours. I do this. I do that. And I look at them and I go, great, but are you living that state? How much are you living that state? Are you so uptight by what you're eating? You know, are you so uptight or not eating and wearing? You know, are you so uptight that, again, if those things are gone, you don't have your ashram, you don't have your yoga studio, you don't have your organic white cotton and your organic foods or your vegan foods, if you don't have all of that, if you don't have all of those accoutrements, right? If you don't have if you don't have that outer support or that outer reflection, then where are you? So I think the support is great. I'm big on that. We need the rituals of life. We need the rituals. They anchor in our own personal awareness and unfolding. However, we need to be careful not to, because you choke the spontaneity out. Spiritual energy comes through the spontaneity. I mean, it's all spiritual anyway. It's all pranic energy. It's all life force energy. It's all of spirit in materialized form. It's all energetic. That's another way to term spirit is energetic. It's the energetic matrix or matrices. It's the interweaving of the subtle energy that then creates vibrationally and then through thought and then form and action, applied action. But to live more in that flow state, you have to get out of the observer mode. You have to get out of the practice. And it was one thing that I really understood when I was acting. And by the way, I'm not good at it at all. But you can't think about your lines when you're acting because you either flub and lose your lines or you look like you're thinking. You can literally see it. And so when you take through this sometime in your life, watch some great actors, and even they have a lot of dialogue. I'm blown away how they can do this. Or singers, or musicians. They can't think about the notes or what they're bringing. They have to be in this flow state, and it requires a lot of trust to show up. And I remember one of my acting teachers saying, you're not trusting that the words will be there. And I'm like, well, when I look in my mind, they're blank. She says, but you got to get in character. And when you're in character, then the character will know what to say. But I was freaking out. I'm like, yeah, but there's a big schism. There's a big space between the character and knowing what to say and the blankness in the mind or the blankness on the page. And so through our practice, whatever the practice is, whatever the rehearsal is, it's really training us to have those positive triggers that positively trigger the mind body to open to the greater impulses that are going to come through, that flow state, where the lines are there, the music is there, the notes are there. We just know, and it just happens. It just, the call is there, and we're in that free form, free flow. So the practice is very important, the rehearsal is very important, but when we do too much of that, we cut off our spontaneity, we cut off our innovation, our inventor qualities, we cut off the magic, the mystery. So somewhere in between there is a balance. And then Tricia is saying we need the rituals in life, no important sustaining our energetic self to be in the flow. Yes. Didn't I just say that? I'm not sure. Okay, just want to let people know that are coming online on the phone lines. If you do want to get on air, if you have a question or comment, press 1 on the keypad. And again, that number is 347-539-5122. That's 347-339-5122. Press 1 on the keypad. And I might be off my dairy for a little bit. If you can hear my nose is a little congested, I guess. So some people are asking, are you feeling okay? Yes, I am. Okay, we have some questions I want to answer that people emailed in, so we're going to get to that a little bit. I also want to let you know, if you have questions, comments, guest suggestions, or email questions that you want answered on air, you can email me at awakeningsradio@gmail.com. And that's actually better to do that than trying to Facebook me, unless you put it on the front page. We have a media assistant that goes through the emails, but we don't really check them that. And honestly, I have so many ways for people to reach me. They reach me through the blog, they reach me through Facebook, they reach me through email, the Twitter as well. So to make it easy, it's really better to email me at awakeningsradio@gmail.com. And either the producer of the show or my assistant will forward the emails. I'll answer it, forward it to them back, and it will get to you. Or I'll answer it on air, or a little bit of both. But I do love the questions. I love you guys' feedback. I love the questions that you ask, and I also love the guest and topic suggestions. So I'm totally open for that. And again, email me at is awakeningsradio@gmail.com. Also, connect on my blog, my Soul Insights blog, which is Soul Insights, the Spirit-Led Living, and that's Soul Insights, the number 4, spiritledliving.com. You can get tools also at selfandlight.com to help you on your path. And you can, of course, join the Awakenings radio page on Facebook, Awakenings with Michele Meiche, or just go to Michele Meiche on Facebook, and you'll find it. You can find it in the Google, or just do a Facebook search as well. Even though it has my first and last name, it's the Awakenings radio page. If you want my personal page, it's Michele with 2 L's. So there we have it. For people just getting in now, I want to also extend an invitation for this Sunday, November 17th at 3 p.m., because we have the Telesoul Path workshop. That will be this Sunday, November 17th at 3 p.m. Pacific time, connecting to your inner GPS. And you can find out more information by going to connectingtoinnergps.eventbrite.com. All right. So I had a great question, some great feedback from Nicole that it was saying that she's been on an interesting path, which is requiring faith and courage. I feel my current world and circumstances falling away, and a lot of close people with it. I feel I'm opening to something bigger. I feel I'm going to be doing something spiritually based and helping out, and that all my needs are taken care of. Leaving my comfort zone of home, good job, family, etc., and what I have built for the past 5 years. I can feel it all happening energetically, and I'm trusting the process. Let's see. I need to move on to the next step. It will be interesting to see where I am going. And thanks to you so much for all you do. You make the path easier to walk. Thanks, Nicole. That's what I'm hoping to do, is just make the path a bit easier. I'm a little Girl Scout. I'm up in the head a little bit in some things. And leading the hike a little. I can see up at the bend. I've either been there or I can see what's coming there. I get the information, and so I'm passing it on for you to put together in your own way. So I had a couple emails come in about talking more about the shadow and the shadow side, especially as we came out of this intense energies of the retrograde and the solar and lunar eclipse, which required a lot of looking within or delving within. And we're in a succession, by the way, of cycles. It's not going to end, where we're really looking at not only our own personal belief basis of being, how have we been living, but as a collective, as a societal level. Again, and I always say this, the changes that are happening in the world, or that will happen, that positive change, the evolution, is going to happen through individuals. It's not going to happen because of a big group or a corporation, or it's going to happen individually. Just like when you don't shop a certain place and it catches fire because something you don't like or something isn't conscious enough or humanitarian enough, changes are made. The group changes, the system changes. We have to remember that even though the system is vast and it's very interconnected, the system was made by people, and it's created and generated by people. It's reinforced and sustained by people. So there are those people in various sectors, various arenas in the world that are system busters, that are breaking up the system, dismantling it little by little. Kind of tedious. Sometimes there's some leaps. There's a critical mass that's reached, a tipping point, or something completely dismantled, But again, the consciousness is there, but how it manifests into everyday living takes time, effort, and persistence. There's intention. There's putting attention to the intention. And then there are the steps, the action steps. And then there are things that come through energetically or divinely, however you want to put it, that come through that cause a breakthrough. or break down to break through. And so you can look even at technology. How many people have phones, and not just regular phones, but smartphones? How many people do a lot of their business or work on a phone, or keep in touch by a phone, or watch television or movies on a phone, or use applications to help themselves, or reach, maybe they don't have a phone, but maybe they're tweeting to their friends, or they're on the Facebook messaging, or they're using their texting. So, look back, how many typewriters are in use right now? So there was a critical mass there where something took over the typewriter. But we still have the essential keyboard where it began. So we have the foundation there, but something more developed. You have the iPad, the notepad. So what I like to do when I think about what's happening in consciousness, what's happening on an evolutionary level, and are we really making changes, even though a lot seems to get worse before it gets better, there's pockets where it is better. And so you can look to certain aspects of our life. Here, in the main culture, main cultura, you can look, but also pockets in developing countries, with third world countries. I use that term, third world. If anybody has a better term, let me know. Or even in the inner city, there are changes. There are, even with the charter schools where parents are saying, look, we're going to help teach, or we're going to, oust these teachers that are not really, up to par anymore, or they've lost faith, or maybe they weren't that stellar to begin with. So again, I think we need to look around periodically to notice, yes, there has been change. And even personally, have you made personal change that's not only helped your life, enhanced your life, but those around you, right? It extends out. As you're doing better, as you're living more authentically and communicating more openly and really showing up in your life, that gives those closest to you permission to do that, and there is a ripple effect. So we need to remember that there is this ripple effect. So getting back to the shadow is a ripple effect of what we're all going through, what we haven't yet integrated. It may be projected out into society as a whole, as a collective. There's these collective archetypes that we live out. And there are also the personal, individual aspects of those archetypes that we live out. I want to make sure people know that the shadow is not only what people call, quote unquote, the negative or bad. That's what gets the most attention. But the shadow is anything that's projected out that you don't yet have integrated you're not yet aware of in your personality structure, in your inner psyche. So when you go to those concerts, when you go to rock concerts or whatever, you see the idol or the DJ and you're just, wow, you're so great. You're caught up in a projection. That's the shadow. The message is how to tap into your own creativity, how to tap into your own empowerment. You see somebody that's so empowered or very intuitive. It's great to admire that, but it stays shadow material when we don't have the awareness of what it is, assimilated and integrated. Integrated and assimilated, and it is a better way to put it. So people, the common example is, the shadow material of bumping into angry people, or there's a lot of angry people out there, so you must be angry. Not always. We don't live just by projection. We also live by perception. So we live by perception when we've taken back enough of our projection to see what is really there. That's what a really good psychic reading is about, or channeling. You clear your filters enough. Now, can we ever 100% clear them? I don't think so, but I think you can get up there pretty much. But you're always going to have some influence of what we've experienced, where we've come from, and our beliefs. But the less we have of that, the more we're able to perceive what is actually in the moment. And a big key to moving out of projection is handling our own shadow material, taking back those projections. The projected material creates shadows. It's projected outside, and that's what they call a shadow. We're not aware of it. We're not integrating it and not assimilating it. So there are octaves within the shadow. I mean, the shadow material is in the astral plane. Okay, so we have all these things that are projected out, whether, individually, personally, and collectively. Things that we don't necessarily want to look at, jealousy, anger, but we need to look at the reason. See, the shadow is the reason for it. Everything, to some level, is a cry or an expression of love, right? A cry for love or expression for love. If you look at love as the only substance, it's the basis of everything. It's not only the glue, but it's the substance. And it takes many shapes and many forms, whether, again, it's a creative act, whether it's making love, whether it's a great conversation, you find criminals that are, they had, the anger, but we can't have anger if there wasn't a love and a rejection of that love or not getting something. Love can take the form of appreciation or getting our needs met or attention. When we give attention, that's a form of love. So not having that love, it puts people in a place to cry out for love or do things, maybe even in a twisted way, to get that love or feel that love. If it's very twisted, it can be pain as love, right? I mean, it could. So again, it's not so much what people are doing or not doing, it's the motivation behind it, it's the intention. What question are they trying to answer? What are they trying to solve? The hermit, let's say the shadow of the hermit. I've been hurt so much, I'm not going to be around people, I'm going to be a recluse. I'm going to be, or my, I saw relating growing up was so horrible with my family, let's say, or parents. Let's say the mother and father were constantly arguing or there was violence. The shadow of that can be somebody that is looking for love in all the wrong places, very promiscuous, not honoring self to try to get that love, sacrificing self to try to get that love, or cut off. I don't need love. I'm a recluse. I'm a hermit. I'm just putting my focus and energy in my art, in my career, whatever it is, or feeling that too much space and not connection, maybe it's addiction through alcohol or drugs or over shopping or over gambling or over something, overuse, to try to numb. So the shadow, what we see as the shadow is the symptom. We need to look beyond the symptom as what is trying to be solved here, what is trying to be healed and rebalanced within the inner psyche. I love it. Okay, like let's look at pop culture, like the Biebers, right? Justin Bieber, what are they called? Believers, whatever they're called. I don't even know. Whatever. Okay, so those young girls, rushing the stage. The guys want to be like him. The hat cocked to one side, gangsta, right? And the girls, I love him, and swooning for him, right? That's all fine. That's part of the game. But what's the motivation? What someone needs to say collectively is, yeah, that's cool. I love it that you think I'm so cool, but you're cool too. What qualities that you have similar to me that you're projecting onto me? See, that's the shadow. Gangsta. Nobody's going to take, it's empowerment. It's the hero. It's the nemesis, but the flip side is the hero. I would say to those people, how can you be the hero in your own life instead of following someone else? Use that, follow someone to be inspired, but then do your own thing. And for those young girls, it's connecting into their inner masculine, the part that wants to step out from the crowd. Because what if somebody that's on stage has stepped out from the crowd and said, here I am, listen to my song, my music, my poem, look at me. And so instead of projecting that on, again, it remains shadow material. That's why we have idols. That's why we have emphasis on the pop culture. We're not taking that, turning that around and taking that shadow material of the positive and saying, hey, it's not the basketball star, it's not the football star, it's not the rapper, it's not the musician, it's not the politician, it's not them out there that have it all. They're only reflecting what everyone has within them that needs to be, that they need to become aware of and connect to, and activated or lived out. And so we all need people to inspire us. We all need people to help us, let us aspire to something more, something greater. However, to get stuck in the projection promotes the shadow material, that it gets projected out into the world. And then we have these schisms of have not, and have. It stays projected out as shadow material. And again, that also goes for what we call, there's the positive projection I've been talking about, or the negative projection, what is not life-enhancing, the destroyer. Those people out there are killing people. Those people out there are destroying things. But we all have the killer within us, the destroyer within us. There's a positive way to dismantle something, to destroy something, to let it go. Like a kid playing with something, playing with sand, building a sandcastle and then taking their hand and dashing it away, or banging on their truck or their dolly, pulling the head off, right? We all have that within us. But until we recognize that we have these qualities, all of us within us, whether it's a lot or a little or just a slice, until we recognize it, become aware of it, and positively integrate it into our life, then it gets projected out into society and we act it out. It acts through us in balanced ways. So I'm going to get to phone lines now. I'll talk more about the shadow. I'll weave more in, and we'll even get into some dialogue about the archetypes and how to integrate the archetypes and even recognizing what archetypal energy you're playing out. Because really what we're talking about all is about qualities of energy. It's all the same energy, but for different uses. And the more we can become aware of the shadow material within ourselves, assimilate and integrate and assimilate it in life-enhancing ways, the less shadow material is projected out into the world. So it's kind of like doing your own cleanup, maybe. How's that? Kind of like recycling in a way, taking care of our own trash, so to speak. Okay, opening phone lines, 347-539-5122. Press 1 on the keypad to let me know you want to get on air. Hi, 720-628. You're on Awakenings Radio.
Hello, Michelle. This is Michelle.
Oh, hello, Michelle. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the program. Do you have a question or a comment?
Thank you. Yes, I actually do. I have a friend, her name is Christy, and we have actually not been in contact for about 20 years, and we reconnected again like a couple days ago. And I'm trying to find out, is this like a good thing for us to be friends again, or should we have just, left it to the side like we did 20 years ago?
Here's, you bring up a really good point. I do want to talk about 20 to 21 years. I'm hearing yes, but build rapport and just feel it out. Don't jump right in.
Okay.
Is what I'm hearing. I feel like there still is some care there. Does that make sense? It feels like there's still. What's the betrayal there? I feel like you're kind of uncertain. You're backing off. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really betrayal. It's just that, like, the life that she was, looking to live was something that I was like, we got to grow up, we got to grow up.
But you were feeling, but there's a disappointment. I don't know if betrayal, disappointment, being let down. I feel like you were feeling let down.
Yeah,
and
like, it was like, just like, she's even older than me, and so when it came to being like, it's time to grow up, we have to live life, and she wasn't understanding that, and so I'm the one who kind of cut off the friendship because, I literally was like, I'm a lot of people that weren't ready to grow up, I just stopped dealing with them.
Well, what does grow up mean?
Like now, she's not in that space at all anymore since I've seen her again. But I'm just kind of wondering, is it good? Because I know we must have come in contact, again for a reason. But I'm just wondering if it would be, good.
I think we weave in and out of certain relationships because of, and I always talk about it, resonance. Sometimes we resonate more with people and sometimes less. And
yeah.
I think the thing is I try not to judge. I go, okay, I judge, is this right for me? Or I say, well, it's not a match right now. For some reason, there's more space. And you have to weigh that for yourself. But I do feel not to just jump in. I feel for you, too, to just start building rapport back and see where it goes. But also be aware that resonance doesn't mean exactly like me. You know, when we're in resonance with people, they're going to have differences, you know, and there are going to be those differences. And if the differences become, I don't want to say too much, because I have some friends that are very close to me that don't like doing a lot of the same things that I like doing and can't even understand it. You know, it's not even in their world. Not even in our world. And I look at their world and I go, but we really connect with certain things.
Yeah.
But other things, like we don't. And so but I just let us stay where we connect. Right?
Definitely.
So put it that way. And you brought up a point, and we're going to get to other callers. You brought up a point where you said 20 years ago. Right now, especially between now, I would say it's February, maybe for some people even March, and this started last month. A lot of people are being brought back to, and if you're really young, it's going to be, you know, you're going to have to do past life on this. What was going on in the 20 years ago for you, or mid-90s? There's going to be a repeat of that circumstance somehow coming back around for you. And I'm saying this to you, Michele, but also to other listeners, that you're like, oh, that person's come back in my life, or something similar, or I already experienced this before. And so it's almost like what people experienced back in that time frame got to completed to a certain level, or was hanging. And now you're coming back to complete it or experience it with more awareness and more understanding and perhaps more authenticity, more of who you really are. So we're all in that kind of phase right now. There's going to be major decisions for people all of next year. I'm calling them directional changes, because they're not just mental or emotional, psychological change, like, oh, I'll eat better, I'll work out more. They're going to be changes that are wholly changing the fabric of someone's life, like completely moving. Maybe they lived in the big city, and now all of a sudden they decide they're moving to the country, or they marry somebody that lives in the country. Oh, there we go. Or they live in the country, they marry somebody, now they're living in the big city. So for those of you that kind of been working on things, you'll probably see the new direction on the horizon, February, March. Directional changes, complete change of job, that kind of thing as well. Or somebody coming back in your life like this. Thanks, Michele. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thanks for calling in.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye. I will.
Thank you. Bye. Hi, 602-943. You're on Awakenings Radio. 602-943. You're on Awakenings.
Oh, hi, Michele. This is Trish. How are you?
Hi, Trish. Welcome.
I can barely hear you, but that's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I can't believe how spot on this previous reading is. I've been unwell for about 10 days, and I was reunited with my firstborn son, who I put up for adoption when I was 20 in 1995. And he's coming from London. Pardon me?
There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's coming from London to take me on a trip to Sedona, but I've been so stressed and so sick. I've only seen him 3 times. This will be the 4th time in those 20 years, and we have a pretty good relationship on the phone. But 2 things I'm just wondering: what can I do to boost my immune system to be well and energized when he comes in about 10 days? That's just 10 days today. And what can I? And will we have a good time?
You will have a good time, but I also see to be easy on yourself. Some of what I feel that you're going through right now is kind of an emotional cleansing, and also a bit of emotional nerves, you know. And so the immune system.
Nerves, yes.
I personally swear by. I take Echinacea Golden Seal by Zand, Z-A-N,
Well,
Zand
I've been taking that,
the tincture. The Zand tincture?
Not the Zand tincture per se, no.
No, but the Zand tincture has
Z-A-N?
Z-A-N-D. Z-A-N-D. It has a certain proprietary...
Echinacea Golden Seal,
But it's not just Echinacea Golden Seal. It has other preparations in there. So I find when I know...
It's the Zand tincture.
Yeah, it's by Zand Pharmaceuticals. And actually one of my neighbors, it's interesting, worked with her years ago, I guess when her daughter was young and had some immune disorder. And the woman, I believe her name is Janet Zand, Z-A-N-D. But there's homeopathic preparations. There's herbs in there as well as the Echinacea Golden Seal. So when I feel like I'm either under emotional stress or I have a lot that's going to be on my plate, I just start taking that in, diluted orange juice, or something, throughout the day. So
I just buy it as Zand. I just ask them for Zand, Z-A-N-D.
Yes, it's called Ensure Herbal. I-N-S-U-R-E.
Oh, thank you. Ensure Herbal.
Mm-hmm.
And will I be well? I'm so sorry to take up your time with such a seemingly insignificant
No, it's not insignificant.
Question.
I do feel you'll be well, but you need to, I feel like emotionally you need to calm, maybe even journal your thoughts, and you need to really nurture. I feel like this is for everyone, by the way. This cycle is bringing up a lot of stuff in the past, childhood, decisions. Did we make the right decision? Should I have married that person? I married that person. Was it wrong? Should I have married the other? But I took that job. It's bringing up deep-seated fear, regret, remorse, deep, heavy emotions. They're not little light, right? So that tends to trigger the emotional body. Those types of emotions, though they're very necessary, they tend to tax our immune system. So what I would say is anything that can help you get those emotions, ideas, and thoughts up and out, while at the same time nurturing the body. Sleeping really well. I like MRM's Relaxol for sleeping. I think that's really good. Taking oats.
Taking
remedies, just oat straw or oats. Eating oatmeal or taking the homeopathic remedy that has or supplemental remedy, right? Oats or oat straw. Anything that's going to support and nurture the nervous system. Healthy nervous system, healthy immune system. When our nerves are frayed, when we have that. Believe me, and I go there myself. Worry thoughts round and round and round and round. Our body can handle it for a little while. After a while, it gets fried. It gets fried. So I feel that for you, Trish, is you've got to really mother yourself right now. You have to not only be the mother to him, is what I'm hearing, but you have to mother yourself. You have to be a mother to yourself right now.
Right.
And you're not been doing that. You've been so focused on him and what you did or didn't do,
Will he be, so we will have a good time? Will it be a nurturing time? A nurturing time?
What kind of time is it, Trish? And what's his first name?
Grant.
Yeah, now is he coming to your house?
No, he's picking him up at the airport with his partner, and we're just driving straight to Sedona.
Oh, but you're going to stay there for a while, like a hotel or something?
Yeah, 3 nights at L'Auberge in Sedona.
Okay, because I see well, it's going to be a little unexpected. I don't know if the plane is late or something going on with the plane. Again, I think just go with the flow. I'm going to look at I say, kind of like the caller before, build rapport, just have expectations of, I'm going to see him and let's see what unfolds. So just be connected to the love, but because I feel like there could be I don't know, you're traveling, there's another person there. There could be a little up and down energy, a little, one of my friends called discombobulated energy. There could be some little things just timing-wise could be a little off. I do feel it'll be a lovely time. But it's just about, I feel, connecting and having a good time. There's that third person there, it's like you all are traveling together, almost as friends in a way, you know?
Right. That's correct. That's how it is.
Yeah. So I would just keep it at that you're doing this little adventure. I would make sure you have some downtime for yourself. Take a bath, refresh, renew, journal. He might be a little guarded sometimes. I don't know if that's because it's his partner. Yeah, but there's a guarded energy. So I want you just to know that that's
his partner.
Yeah, that's just him. So,
right.
So kind of just go as friends. We'll be rooting for you. We'll send you some big hug and healing light, okay?
Oh, blessings to you. Many, many blessings, and many thanks for taking my call. Great topic, by the way, and I'm going to be listening to this one again. Thank you so much, Michele.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for love and peace to you, too. Thanks for calling in, Tricia.
Thank you. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah. It's such a powerful time right now, you know, and I think one of the things I get from sharing with all of you is that, myself included, we all have to move into our next level of really accepting ourselves, accepting each other, and moving into more of what is. And know that we are all interconnected, that people do get what we're thinking about or feeling on some level, even if they're not able to totally respond in kind, you know. And I think that acceptance and tolerance is moving us more into respect and honoring. You know, when we can honor our own path, it's just so much easier to honor someone else's. And again, that comes from us being aware of the interconnectedness of everything and everyone. It's time now for our awakening conversation. We are just so honored to have back on the program with us Dr. Larry Dossey, who's a leader in bringing scientific understanding to spirituality and rigorous proof to complementary integrative medicine. Dr. Dossey lectures at leading medical schools and hospitals around the country. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Healing Words, as well as numerous, 10 or 11 other books as well. His latest book is titled One Mind, which is about how our mind is part of a greater consciousness and why this matters. Welcome to the program, Dr. Dossey.
Michele, it's great to be with you. Thanks for the re-invite.
Oh, I was, so tickled. And I said at the top of the program, I was sharing with everyone that you were back, and I said, and he has the distinction of being the only guest that my dog Yoshi will sit and listen to.
I think I'll put that on my CV if it's okay with Yoshi.
That's right. Oh, gosh. And I remember last time I think you were on you have a dog as well. That was, I think, by you as well, so if I recall. So it says a lot when the animal beings will listen, because I think they tune us out a lot.
I think you're right.
I am so intrigued and so excited by your latest book. I've loved all of them, but this one I feel is really calling to not only where we're at right now, but a bit of a handbook as to where we're going and the why. You're the one that's answering the why, which is thank you, brilliant.
Well, I really appreciate your saying that. I was intrigued by your comments to the immediate past caller when you were talking about unity and connectedness. I think this is the vital issue of our time. And that's basically the premise about what this new book, The One Mind, is all about.
Mm-hmm. First of all, before we dive into that, because I had another question I wanted to ask you, but you saying that statement, I wanted to ask the why. Why do you think, or why and how do we get, and maybe it's the fragmentation that you talk about in the book, but why and how did we get so disconnected that we don't recognize how interconnected that we are?
Well, it's a great question, and one that really deserves our tremendous thoughtfulness. I think that we have it within us to go beyond this sense of disunity and selfishness and greed. We can do that. Indeed, people throughout human history have made that leap. But the thing is that we seem to be wired biologically to emphasize our disconnectedness, our individuality. You know, our culture has made a fetish of individual responsibility. I'm not against that. I think that if we're going to survive as a species on Earth, it comes in quite handy to see yourself as separate and an individual organism. But the tragedy that has befallen us in our time is that we have overemphasized that side of the coin and almost completely neglected our oneness and unity and connectedness. And it's gotten us into a tremendous amount of trouble. I think we're the first generation on this earth who can glimpse that we may not make it. And the problem is, Michele, that our sense of responsibility and isolation has led to a degree of selfishness and greed that's destroying our planet. And I think this idea that we're connected in ways that we seldom realize is absolutely vital for us if we're going to survive in any meaningful way. And I think the work you're doing in connecting with people at a psychic level is part of the pattern that we need to awaken to.
Thank you for saying that. I do as well, and perhaps even showing how others have this as well, you know, which you do talk about in your book. I love what you say, too, this idea that in the 20th century that the mind got put apart, this fragmentation, being divided, and you're putting it back together. And again, my question is, how does this putting it back together look for us?
Well, I think it shows up in just an extraordinary number of ways. For example, studies show that the majority of Americans and Western citizens of Western countries in general have in their lives often experiences where they share thoughts and feelings with other people. You know, we've called that telepathy and clairvoyance in the past, and it's been put down as, you know, just parapsychology and all of that, and we've had a tendency, at least in my profession, to look the other way when these things happen. But these are cues and indicators to us that we can't put our individual minds in a box or a brain and seal them off from each other. At some domain, our minds come together across space and time, and they just won't stay put, not even in the present. Their minds can range forward into the future and into the past and retrieve information that we would not otherwise have access to if we remain locked into our individual brain and body. There are many ways that people come to this understanding. One of the most drastic, and I don't recommend this, by the way, but because it can have lethal outcomes, we know now that around 15 million American people have had near-death experiences. And this is one of the most dramatic ways of understanding our unity and connectedness with other individuals, because when these people come back from that experience, the world has changed for them. They don't perceive themselves as separate any longer, and this sense of unity and connectedness is marinated with a deep sense of love and caring and compassion. But people don't have to have near-death experiences before they get this. You know, epiphanies happen all the time spontaneously to people who just seemingly get zapped out of nowhere, and they just understand this automatically. And then there are people who come into life, which we sometimes refer to as old souls, who just seem to get this sense of unity. They don't have to read anybody's book or have any, you know, additional experiences. They just seem to be wise on being born. And in between, there are just many numbers of ways where we can wake up to this unity and oneness. One which my wife, Barbara, and I have pursued for many years is just getting lost every summer up in the wilderness somewhere along the Continental Divide and the Rocky Mountains and just camping out for 2 to 3 weeks. That'll get your your mind rearranged. just you and the bears, and so there are many ways where we can just stumble into this recognition that the fundamental aspect of who we are isn't isolation and individualism. It's connectedness and unity, and I think you have to work pretty hard to hide from this, but, obviously a lot of people do.
I love it. It sounds like, too, by what you're saying, that in a way we went as far as we can with this separating out, or the idea of separation. There has to be a turnaround, a curve. Otherwise, we'll go into extinction, it sounds like. I mean, we can't go any further in the disconnect route.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly right. We've been turning a deaf ear to the warnings of experts in environmental and ecology studies who tell us that we're at a tipping point in many ways where we better wake up or we're not going to have a future. I think that this ought to be lit up in neon in people's minds these days. And the question, is how people can wake up. I think that we're at a turning point where something dramatic may be about to happen that will result in the awakening of huge numbers of people around the planet. We really don't have to happen that everybody gets it or awakens. It's the critical people who know the decision points and how to make things happen politically and socially who really need to get this. And I think that there are more people out there who are on the verge of this awakening than we have any idea about. They don't get a lot of press. A lot of them are silent because there's some sort of a stigma about talking this way. But I'm hopeful. I'm an optimist about this, and I don't want to, have our listeners leave this conversation totally depressed. Because
I think I agree with you. The optimism. I think it's happening. I think it's about getting it more in the mainstream awareness, or maybe more in our structures, our systems. And something you said a minute ago, you said it's almost common sense. I mean, I think you cite some examples even about like the birds flying or flock. There is this. I always look like in New York or Chicago or London. When droves of people across, especially New York, crossing the street, the light goes.
Right.
Each one is in their own world, but how do they know not to bump into each other? They just sense it. They feel where the next person is going to be walking. It's just a beautiful synchronistic timing, like synchronistic swimming, I guess is what So I think the examples are there, but maybe it's people need to, like you said, be aware of it or wake up to it.
I have had experiences myself which shaped my openness toward this idea of connectedness. I'm an identical twin, and my twin brother and I, all through our life, have had experiences at a distance where we knew what each other was thinking, and often knew what each other was feeling. And we've even shared physical symptoms at a distance. I've got a chapter in the book about this. It's called Telesomatic Phenomena. And it's absolutely weird. I mean, this is one of the most profound examples of connectedness and unity between distant people I know of. And let me give you just one example about how weird and how wonderful this is. There's one account I write about in the book that involved identical twin girls who were 4 years old. And this happened a case that was reported from northern Spain in the 1970s, but there are many cases like this. So one of these little girls was taken by their daddy to visit the grandparents one day. The other little girl stayed home to help her mom with chores. And unfortunately, she touched her hand to a red-hot iron and suddenly erupted in a second-degree blister, which covered almost half of her hand. And at the same time, tens of miles away, the other twin girl, erupted with an identical blister on the same hand in the same pattern in the same place. And there's no way in the world that you can understand this by just marking this off to coincidence and, just one of those things which skeptics love to do. But there are hundreds of these kinds of cases, and this is just this is in-your-face evidence that we're connected in ways that we seldom realize.
Mm. And you talk about as well, obviously people that are very close, there is this connection, emotionally close, parents, lovers, or whatever.
Right.
What about people, let's say that walking down the street or strange, or somebody you're having a more casual relationship with or short term? Is that interconnectedness there as well?
Well, there is. I would say that it's more prominent and more likely to occur in people who are deeply bonded emotionally, such as around 30% of identical twins express this, and it's very common in lovers as well. And but that's not to say that it doesn't occur in other people. There are people who are unbonded emotionally who share this sort of thing as well. So I would say, although it's more prominent in people who love each other and feel deep emotional compassion and love between them, it's available to just about everybody.
Mm-hmm. So in saying it's available, you mean are we tapping into it with something that's already there, or just becoming more aware of it?
Well, you don't have to make it. It's already there. I think it's part of our birthright. Our task isn't to create it or make it happen. It's to align with it and invite it into our lives. And this is a clue about how people can access this. You can't manipulate it. It goes on its own way. Aldous Huxley said that there's a kind of law of reversed effort, he called it, where the harder you try, the less it's likely to happen. And I think that's the way this happened. We have to set the stage for it and invite it and invoke it into our life. I think it's part of setting an intention. You declare to the universe that you want to know this. You don't have to make it happen. You have to set the stage for it, and it's always there, knocked over, waiting for you to open it, waiting for it to come in the living room of your awareness. I think this awareness is always there at the subconscious level, but usually, in the noise of everyday life, 24/7 these days almost, we just suppress this. There's an old saying that God's wind is always blowing, but first you have to lift your sail. This sort of captures the attitude, I think, that we need to take about this. It's not a matter of manipulation. It's a matter of respectfully inviting this awareness into our conscious awareness.
And Larry, do you believe at some point that we will live more with this? Because now we're having to become aware of it, or invited in, or open to it, that which is there. You say aligned to it, attuned to it. Almost seem like tuning into a signal without obviously effort. But do you feel by your research that you've done that part of our evolution, in a sense, or letting the space of what is already there come through, do you feel that at some point we'll live more this way? Will this be more prominent?
I think that's, I can give you a definite yes opinion about it. And the reason I do is not based on fantasy. It's because this kind of awareness of connectedness and unity with one another has what we call in this business survival value. Biologists say that if some sort of faculty or talent or trait crops up in human beings that helps you live and survive and perpetuate your genes through offspring and succeeding generations, then this quality or this ability or this understanding may be incorporated into our genetic structure and perpetuated down through the generations. The reason is it has survival value. It makes it more likely that you're going to stay alive. That's a pretty good description of what this one mind awareness is. If ever we needed this kind of awareness to survive, it is now. And so I think that that's a pretty good rationale for saying that we're going to be living into this if we can avoid, extinguishing ourselves in the short run. I think this is our birthright. I think this is where we're headed. And there are other reasons, Michele, because studies show that people who permit this awareness in their life are more joyful, they're more content, they have more peace, they're more creative, and they have a greater degree of deeper wisdom than people who exclude this awareness from their life. And in the book, I talk about actual cases where you can draw these conclusions. Can I give you one with?
Yes, please.
About creativity.
Please do.
This comes from the life of Thomas Edison, who gave us the phonograph, the electric light bulb, and God knows what else. He was one of the most creative inventors in the history of the human race. And as I quote Edison in the book, he said once that I've never created anything. That's kind of a jaw dropper right there. But he went on to explain. He said, I get ideas from the universe. He said, thoughts come to me from the outside. He said, I'm just a recording device. It's sort of like I just take dictation. Things come to me. I don't make these ideas up. This is a great description of how the one mind works, in my opinion. You can imagine that if one minds come together, they might constitute a pool of information that creative people might learn how to tap into. I think this is exactly what Edison was doing. He wasn't the only one. I talk about a lot of these examples in the book where people in dreams and reverie and just sitting around doing nothing have the great breakthrough, the great aha moment. So I think this is the one mind in action.
Mm-hmm. I kind of a two-parter. Where did the one mind come from, or that concept, and also how did you not only become interested but decide I need to write about this? I need to get this information out there.
It's been a fairly slow but progressive evolution for me. Back in my early science days, when I was going to university and medical school and postgraduate training, I didn't want anything to do with this idea. People were made fun of who talked about can know things in a connection that, from one person on one side of the earth to another. This would get you into trouble professionally, But I couldn't stay in that place. I had, during the first year of my medical practice of internal medicine, I had a series of precognitive dreams in which the first one involved dreaming about a complex medical situation that involved the young son of one of my medical colleagues. And I dreamt what would happen the next day in such detail that there was no way this could just happen by chance. I was completely unnerved by this experience. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But I began to discuss this with a few people. Word got out that I was interested in this sort of thing, and my patients began to tell me about precognitive dreams and prophetic knowings about their own health that turned out to be eerily accurate. And eventually, my colleagues, other doctors, began to share with me their own experiences along these lines. I'll never forget when I was giving a lecture to a group of Harvard, a group of doctors who were attending a Harvard medical update course. I decided to talk about my experiences as a physician along these lines, and I thought that probably, they would all get up and walk out. But during the Q&A session, they began to share with me their experiences. There was one woman who stood up in the middle of the audience, and this female internist said, well, doctor, I get numbers in my dreams. She said, I dream the exact values of my patients' lab tests before I even order the tests. So it's this sort of thing.
Wow.
I think a lot of people are sitting on these kind of experiences, and they're just hesitant to talk about them. I know that's true in my profession of medicine, and I have to say I'm married to a nurse. My wife Barbara is a cardiovascular nurse specialist and educator, and she's had these experiences all of her life. And she has been a great resource to me because she's been able to relate to me experiences of her nursing colleagues in hospitals who have these experiences all the time. So I don't think this is anything exotic or far out. The problem is that we just are hesitant to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Years ago I did modeling and acting, and my agents would tell me, "Don't bring up your psychic. Don't tell him about that."
There you are.
But I did. I said, "Why?" And it's, because you might scare them. And just what you're saying, everybody on the set had it. They'd come to me. I'd be in the makeup room, and I heard you're psychic. I want to tell you. I think I might be too. I know my aunt was going to die, or so-and-so called on the phone. And then the books would come out. Books they were reading about this. I said, this is closeted. Everybody is hiding in the closet. The only thing I can think of is as there's more books, perhaps like your book, One Mind, where there is, especially because you came from a background not believing this and then experiencing it firsthand, then talking to others that were experiencing it and getting that proof and doing the scientific research, that maybe a book such as yours, getting out there more, gets in the right hands, that it becomes more and more, not just valid, but I think palatable. For some reason there's a distaste to it, even though most people or everybody's doing it, kind of having these experiences.
I've often wondered why people are so hesitant to come forward with these kinds of experiences which point to our unity and connectedness. And I think there's a cultural hangover that still is in effect, because, it just wasn't so long ago that we used to burn usually women at the stake who had what they call second sight, which is just clairvoyance and precognition and telepathy and all that. That was considered the devil's work. And I don't think that stigma has totally gone away. I bet you bump into it from time to time with people, deeply religious people are convinced that, you're doing the devil's work here and, you need to stop that evil stuff. I don't think it's evil. I think it's part of our human experience. It comes factory installed. It's who we are. And if we're going to survive, we need to honor all that we are, because we're going to need all of the human capabilities we can muster if we're going to survive and thrive.
And this brings me to the point. So was it psychiatry or other types of brain science where they're saying, well, these kinds of things happen, neurologically, or there's, the near-death experience, it's, not enough oxygen in the brain and this and that. Where do you think, where are they now currently with this idea of the one mind?
I think it's for people, let me put it this way, for people who have an open mind and who are actually willing to look at the evidence, and that in itself is not easy because there's so much of it. You would have to spend years before you covered this territory fully, but the evidence is there. It comes in the form of in many varieties. Now there are compelling experiments that have been done in the hundreds in fields called remote viewing, which I know you know a lot about. And there's a series of studies called presentiment studies, which show clearly in computer-based experiments that people can sense the future, can change the function of what are called random number generators, which are just fancy computers designed to spit out equal numbers of ones and zeros, and by intention you can force them to do one or the other, even though you're on the other side of the earth from the computer. People just get their backs up about this and refuse to look at the evidence, but for people who are willing, the evidence is there. I think we've crossed the threshold where we're able to say that no longer is the sort of stuff we're talking about here anti-science. It has been validated in hundreds of experiments by different investigators all over the earth by now. There's a huge literature about this. I've written 12 books about this myself, and so have many other people like Dr. Dean Radin, Chris Carter, and my book, I just give a long list of these things for people can go to satisfy themselves about the evidence.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is great to have the evidence there. You must have poured through a lot of research to put this together.
Well, I have. I followed this field ever since I had my own personal experiences, almost 40 years ago, and I've kept up with it along the way. So I'm not one of those people who's had to go back and try to, digest these decades of experiments. I've sort of gradually absorbed them over the years, and to my mind, the evidence is in, and it's high time we opened our eyes and woke up to that fact.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Dossey, where do animals, or like I could say animal beings, fit into this idea of one mind?
I think they're centrally located. And one of the pieces of enjoyment in putting this book together was to go back and look at animal lore, which points in the same direction. It's all over the place. People can clearly communicate at distances with animals. There is mass behavior in flocks and herds and schools of fish even, showing what appears to be a collective mind, because you can't explain the behaviors of these huge groups of animals without taking a one-mind approach. One of the interesting to me is animals who seem to be able to find their way back home over thousands of miles of distance, which you have to come up with something like an extended consciousness or a one mind in order to explain that sort of thing. So the book is full of instances like this, and and in the book, I had an experience when I was finishing this book that brought the animals into it. My wife and I live out on the side of a mountain in northern New Mexico, and as I was writing this book toward the last, coyotes began to assemble outside my office window. We've lived here 20 years, and this has never happened before. And they began to look at me as I was sitting at my word processor. And what was interesting about this is that I was writing the section in the book which dealt with the one mind connections between animals and people. And so they just showed up when I was.
My God!
They
confirming it.
Yeah, that's right. And they continue to come and look in my office. And I thought they've come here to check on things. I had the idea that they were trying to make sure they got noticed in the book, and so they did. I have a huge section on the one mind of animals and humans. So the coyotes came as a reminder that they were part of the one mind. At least that's what it seemed to me.
Now, with this one mind, is it psychic, intuitive, telepathic, with remote? I mean, it's all of it. I guess that's compartmentalizing. But how are we connecting with each other and giving each other these messages, or the animal beings are giving us the messages?
Well, I think that the one mind involves all those things you just mentioned, and it also can manifest as simply a feeling of right living, of being on the right channel in your life, a feeling of certitude that this feeling of oneness and unity is the way the universe is designed, and you've tapped into it. And this manifests usually as a sense of contentment and fulfillment and joy and peace, which just says, you're on track. Keep it up. There are several hypotheses now in hard science that purport to explain how we actually connect. They're pretty complicated. I'll just say that I think the one that is going to win the day is a process that is called entanglement. And without going into detail, this is just a fancy way of using quantum physics to explain the way that things can be connected across great distances. It used to be thought that this entanglement stuff just referred and explained to these distant connections between subatomic particles like electrons and photons and all that, but the key development of the last few years is that it has been conclusively shown that people can be entangled in the same way, apparently, that photons and electrons can. This is a hugely promising area of science to get a handle scientifically on how we could be connected at great distances and even outside the present. So I go into that and I spell that out in clear, uncomplicated language for lay people. I mean, this is not a book for scientists, so it's all in the book.
That's great to know. I mean, that alone, because so many people say, well, how is it? You know, that I think we're moving more and more into the how and you know, why. How is this happening? Why? And then, you know, again, like we said at the top of the program, how to align, how to attune to this.
Sure.
Which one of the ways you said nature seems to do that. Obviously, different forms of meditation. Larry, is it also like a relaxing? Is it to open to this or invite it or align to it? Is it somehow letting our defenses down?
I think it is.
Yeah.
You know, I love the term you used, alignment. I think that really goes a long way to capture the strategy. You know, I don't know if you've had Angie Arian on your program or not, but she's an author and a great teacher, and she has something she calls the 4 rules of life, which are a pretty good shorthand for how to connect with this idea of the one mind. Her first rule is just show up. The second rule is pay attention. The third rule of life is tell the truth. And the fourth rule of life is don't be attached to results. And that's where the relaxation and the letting go comes in. So show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't be too attached to results is a pretty good way of inviting the one mind awareness into people's lives.
So I'm wondering, by what you're saying, it sounds like the attachment might block our connection, our interconnectedness, or to this substance, whatever it is, this resonance or resonant field. Or
Exactly. You know, the attachment warning is just part of many Eastern traditions, particularly Buddhism. At some point, we're told that if you want it, you got to let it go. I mean, if you want to chase it away, you've just got to try hard to find it. You know, that's that law of reversed effort we were talking about. And I find this is one of the most difficult things for Westerners to get.
Yeah.
Because we're reared on this idea that if you want something, you really got to go for it. Where this idea is concerned, it's exactly the opposite. You have to want it, you have to set the stage for it, but then you have to let it do you. You don't do it. And it must be allowed to exist on its own terms. And the reason is you already know this stuff. I mean, this is there in your subconscious. So you don't have to invent it, you don't have to acquire it, you just have to open up to it. And that's best done when we engage in activities which put the conscious mind to rest. You know, whether we call that meditation or listening to great music or whether it's viewing art, all those activities are ways of shushing our conscious irrational minds. We just need to put that aside, put it to bed for a while, and see what happens.
And you go into that in the book of the ways to do that?
Yes, there's a whole section on accessing the one mind. The ways are individual. What works for one person will not work for another. I want to emphasize also that, you know, there's no formula to this. There are no, 7 easy steps that will guarantee this, because it's all individual. We're all so different. There's no formula that can be applied to everybody, and we all have to come at this in our one way. And the nice thing is that there's so many ways, and probably one per person. And I think it's a mistake for us to say, look, if you want this, here's what you do. Those kinds of books just turn me off, I tell you. And so
I talk about that all the time on the program. Like, I know you guys want a recipe. I know you want 1, 2, 3. But if it was 1, 2, 3, we'd all be there.
No, I know that's exactly right. And the secret, the secret is that there's no secret. And in my opinion, so the way is not to manipulate, but to invite and to be grateful for what the universe gives us.
Mm. Yeah, which I guess goes into that. Don't be too attached to the results.
That's why they call it awakening, Michele. That term awakening is waking up is so common in almost all religious traditions, and what it conveys to me is that it's like turning a light on. It's shedding light, enlightenment. You turn the light on, and what you see is what was there all along. So the term enlightenment, I think, says a lot about the process that's helpful here.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, one thing I just want to, just a couple remaining minutes here, but and you go into this in the book, which I really feel the book is fabulous. I think because again, you're not just giving what's going on and the research behind it, but the why and the how. The potential that it's within everyone, and there are ways to tap in. Comes up against religion when we talk about one mind or this interconnectedness, which for me, in my interpretation, that's what God is, the all that is, or subtle energy, life force, animating energy. It comprises all of this. Where do you feel this will go with religion, some of the more conventional, fundamental religions? Because sometimes we get people on the show that bounce up against that they're having these experiences, but like you said, is it the devil, about Jesus? We're not supposed to, we got to go to the priest. Where do you feel religion fits into all this, if at all?
Well, I think it certainly can. There are many kinds of religions, ranging from what we call fundamentalism into a kind of understanding that shades into what I want to call spirituality, which doesn't involve any creed in particular. And the core of at least the esoteric sides of most major religions is the desire to connect with something that's transcendent, which is godlike, which goes beyond the individual ego and the sense of self. And when we touch that point, we have the sense that we have connected with the divine. I think the one mind is another word for the divine. And I think the one mind idea really encompasses the idea that consciousness is fundamental in the universe. It's divine-like. We don't have to equate it with God, but at least it has some of those characteristics. So I think the idea of the one mind is completely compatible with the esoteric side of all the major religions, and certainly with some of the principles of what we call spirituality. So I don't see any necessary conflict. Although certain people, can get so stuck in their own religious view that they exclude everything else, but I'm not promoting that. Yeah,
no, you're not. I mean, the book is unifying in itself, so which is a pleasure to see that it's not divisive. It's bringing people and the thoughts and beliefs together, as opposed to being divisive. Oh, Dr. Dossey, we are out of time. I'm just so appreciative of you taking the time to be on our program today and share your thoughts about One Mind and share a bit about your latest book, One Mind. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for all you do to make this world a better place, Michele.
Thank you so much. Okay, and of course that was Dr. Larry Dossey. His latest book is One Mind. I just feel it's such an important piece of work because it's not only giving you what's going on and the research behind it, but the why, and why is this important, and also the how. For more information on Dr. Dossey, you can go to larrydossey.md.com. And, of course, the book, again, is One Mind. Thanks, everyone, for being with us again. Just amazing that we all connect here at this time. I love our Wednesdays together. And I love the idea that we can have these awakening conversations and share with each other. So if you have any insights, want anything answered on air, or you want to share anything with me as well as our listeners, you can email me at awakeningsradio@gmail.com. Hope you can join us for this Sunday, November 17th, for this Soul Path teleworkshop. That means you can do it anywhere in the world. You can join us. And we're going to be focusing on the subtle energy, tapping into inner GPS. And that you can go to connectingtoinnergps.eventbrite.com, or there'll also be information of it in the solar newsletter as well as on the Facebook page. Thanks for being you. Thanks for shining your light and sharing your insight. And until next time, keep awake.
Awakenings broadcasts every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Archive shows are available on iTunes. For continued Awaken conversation and insights, join the Awakenings group on Facebook and visit Michelle's blog at soulinsightsforspiritledliving.com. That's Soul Insights, the number 4, spiritledliving.com. Keep awake.